Hi, I'm Roxanne van Leuven, and I'm here to talk to you about transgenic animals and how they're used in the medical industry. Does anyone have an idea of what a transgenic animal is? Okay, so a transgenic animal is an animal that carries a foreign gene that has been deliberately inserted into their genome. So the genome of an animal is just the part of the animal that has the material responsible for inherited characteristics. Basically, this means that an animal has a trait from another organism that it wouldn't normally have. And a good example of this is a glow-in-the-dark pig or a glow-in-the-dark mouse. So these animals were given a glow gene from a jellyfish that enabled them to glow in the dark. Does that make sense to everyone? Are there any questions about that? How a transgenic animal is produced? There are mainly two methods that are used for this. The first main method is DNA microinjection. So first you take a transgene, and the transgene is just the gene that holds the trait you want to give the animal, like the glow gene from the jellyfish for the glow-in-the-dark mice. And then you take this transgene and inject it into an unfertilized ovum. After this, the ovum is fertilized in vitro. In vitro fertilization is just when the ovum is fertilized outside of the animal's body in a lab. So you just take sperm and fertilize the ovum outside of the animal. Then the fertilized ovum is implanted into a surrogate mother that carries the offspring until it is born and it has the desired traits that was given to it. The second process is basically the same, but it uses embryonic stem cells, specifically totipotent stem cells. Totipotent stem cells can transform into any specialized cell. So basically you just transform these stem cells into the transgene and go through the same process. Does that make sense to everyone? So one of the ways that transgenic animals are mainly used in the medical industry is through xenotransplantation. Xenotransplantation is the use of animal cells, tissues, and organs for human transplants. So basically you could take a heart from a pig and use it for a transplant to a human. Pigs are also able to produce human hemoglobin, which is the essential oxygen-carrying component of blood, and this could be used for transfusions from animal to human. It can also be stored longer than blood donations from humans. Another part of the medical industry that transgenic animals are used for is in the pharmaceutical industry. So one of these ways it's used is through the use of protein-based drugs. Transgenic animals are used to produce these, and one of the most interesting ones is transgenic swine can now produce human erythropoietin, or otherwise known as EPO. So through this picture you can see all the different ways that EPO is used in your body. It's a naturally occurring human hormone that boosts the body's production of red blood cells. It's used for patients with various kidney diseases and also patients with anemia. And it's one of the most widely used protein-based drugs, and it's also very expensive to manufacture. So through producing it through transgenic animals, you also lower the cost for consumers and production. Also, human insulin can now be purified from the pancreas of transgenic swine after being slaughtered for meat. So instead of producing their natural insulin in their pancreas, they produce human insulin, and this can be taken and used. And insulin is a widely used drug, most commonly known for its application to transgenic animals are being used for the production of novel vaccine components. So this allows for vaccines to be produced in larger amounts and more quickly. So not only can they get to people in need, but they can also be produced in much more quickly in response to viral outbreaks, such as a pandemic flu. Transgenic animals are also used for disease research, and they're used for cancer research mostly between two animals, and these are zebrafish. So zebrafish are really cool. They're used for analyzing the stages of cancer growth and for testing anti-cancer agents. So zebrafish are remarkably transparent, as you can see in this picture. So it's really easy to take photographs and monitor the cancer progression. They can also absorb small molecular weight compounds directly from water. So you can just use an anti-cancer agent that you want to test, put it in the water, and they'll absorb it really easily. Mice are used for the detailed study of stage-specific responses to chemotherapy. This isn't the only thing that they're used for, but it's one of the things that just they are mainly used for. And it's basically just seeing at which stage in cancer progression it's most effective to use chemotherapy. Transgenic animals are also used for Alzheimer's research. So transgenic models are able to mimic the changes in the nervous system that Alzheimer's patients experience. And this picture shows the difference in the brain for an Alzheimer's patient. So by transgenic mice showing these similarities, you can test possible ways to treat this disease and monitor diabetes research. So So there are studies being done on transgenic animals for insulin secretion and improving glucose tolerance. And this could be a breakthrough for research done with diabetes. So that's basically, in a nutshell, how transgenic animals are used in the medical industry. And if you want me to go in depth about any part of that or briefly describe it again if it didn't make sense, then if you have any questions, go ahead. Yes?
Are transgenic animals used in any other industries?
Yes, actually they are. They're used in the agricultural industry very well. There are goats that produce spider silk in their milk, and this is used for a lot of things. The spider silk is really strong to make rope. And also there's an EnviroPig, and it absorbs phosphorus more efficiently so that there's less of it in its feces and it doesn't contaminate streams or fish or wildlife. Yes?
So if you can use pig blood, why aren't we just, instead of having blood drives, just bleeding these pigs dry right before they go to slaughter and then just slaughtering them?
Well,
and then we'll have plenty of blood.
It's a really controversial topic, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with it. Mostly the idea of it, and then also using animals for our use. Some people think that that's wrong, and that's a thing to think about. But it's, as you said, it's a really effective way, and transfusions are in really high demand, and there aren't enough people donating to help everyone in need, so it would be a good. Yeah?
Like, do some animals have side effects from the genes being inserted or something?
Well, obviously it's a testing process. This didn't just happen right away. And there were probably side effects through the process of figuring all these things out. But with the technology we have now, a lot of these, there really aren't very many side effects. And like for the insulin produced in their pancreas, there's no side effect with the meat or anything because they already naturally produce that. It's just a different form of it. So there really aren't very many, but I'm sure there are instances where there are.
Where is most of this research taking place? In the United States? Are there certain areas where they're doing more research on transgenic animals?
I think that the research is mainly equal, but in other countries there's more testing going on and actually introducing these things because we aren't very, like xenotransplantation, as far as I know, there isn't testing going on in our country, but in other countries they've actually done it and it's worked for some people. So other countries are more along with this than us, but the research is basically the same level, if that makes sense.
I can understand that there would be benefits to testing so that we could get some of these new technologies. What are some of the controversies that are brought up that kind of are against transgenic animals?
Well, a lot of people are just against testing with animals and using the animals for our use. And they think that it's wrong to raise an animal for just giving it for a transplant for a human because that's its only purpose. So that's definitely a huge controversy. And also, there's some religious controversy that you were meant to have this disease or such, so you shouldn't do things like that. And that's mainly the only controversy to it. I haven't found any other disagreements. Yes?
Are plants used for something like this, for like medical industries?
Yeah, there are transgenic plants, and that's really incorporated into our society right now. There are plants like golden rice has better nutrition for third world countries and stuff like that.
When do you see human testing with this becoming more popular?
I have no idea. There's more acceptance with things such as like GMO foods that I see among people, so maybe this will be a little more accepted since it's kind of similar, but I don't know when it. Are there any other questions? Well, I have a worksheet for you all to do, and I'll give you some time to get that done, and then we can go over it. So I'll pass that out now. If anyone wants to help me pass them out, that would be nice.